The Kulin Charter, written in 1189 in the Bosnian script, testifying to the thousand-year statehood of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and was the first document issued by a Bosnian ruler to the ruler of another country, guaranteeing Dubrovnik merchants in Bosnia freedom of movement and free trade without any taxes. Kulin was the Ban of Bosnia from 1180 to 1204, first as a vassal of the Byzantine Empire, and then of the Kingdom of Hungary, although his state was de facto independent. He was one of Bosnia's most prominent and notable historic rulers, and had a great effect on the development of early Bosnian history. One of his most noteworthy diplomatic achievements is widely considered to have been the signing of the Charter of From Kulin, which encouraged trade and established peaceful relations between Dubrovnik and his realm of Bosnia. His son Stjepan Kulinić succeeded him as Bosnian Ban. Kulin founded the House of Kulinić. Kulin's sister was married to Miroslav, of whom the brother of Serbian Grand Prince Stefan Nemanja. He belonged to the Bosnian nobility and was brought to the throne when the Byzantine Emperor Manuel I Komnen was the ruler of Bosnia. In 1180, when Komnen died, Stefan Nemanja and Kulin asserted independence of Serbia and Bosnia respectively. His rule is often remembered as being emblematic of Bosnia's golden age, and he is a common hero of Bosnian national folk tales. Under him, the Bosnian age of peace and prosperity would come to exist. Bosnia was completely autonomous and mostly at peace during his rule. In 1183, Kulin Ban led his troops with the forces of the Kingdom of Hungary under King Bela and the Serbs under Stefan Nemanja, who had just launched an attack on the Byzantine Empire. The cause of the war was Hungary's non-recognition of the new emperor, Andronik Komnen. The united forces met little resistance in the eastern Serbian lands. The Byzantine squadrons were fighting among themselves, as the local Byzantine commanders Alexei Branes supported the new emperor, while Andronik Lapardes opposed him and asserted the imperial army, going on to adventures on his own. Without difficulties, the Byzantines were pushed out of the Morava Valley, and the allied forces pushed all the way to Sofia, rending Belgrade, Braničevo, Ravno, Niš and Sofia itself. In 1199, Serbian Prince Vukan Nemanjić informed the Pope Innocentie of heresy in Bosnia. Vukan claimed that Kulin, a heretic, had welcomed the heretics whom Bernard II Split had banished and treated them as Christians. In 1200, the Pope wrote a letter to Kulin's suzerain, the Hungarian King Emeric, warning him that no small number of Patorinis had gone from Split and Trogir to Ban Kulin, where they were warmly welcomed, and told him to go and ascertain the truth of these reports, and if Kulin is unwilling to recant, drive him from your lands and confiscate his property. Kulin replied to the Pope that he did not regard the immigrants as heretics, but as Catholics, and that he was sending a few of them to Rome from examination, and also invited that a papal representation be sent to investigate. Unconvinced, the Pope sent his legates to Bosnia to interrogate Kulin and his subjects about religion and life, and if indeed heretical, correct the situation for a prepared constitution. The Pope wrote to Bernard in 1202 that a multitude of people in Bosnia are suspected of the damnable heresy of the Cathars. The two legates sent by the Pope went through the country of Bosnia and interrogated the clergy. In the face of the danger of the crusade, Kulin immediately showed that he wanted to expect everything that the Roman Curia asked of him in terms of religion. In a letter to the Roman Curia, he claimed that he did not know how to distinguish between heretics and true believers, and that he was ready to receive any instruction in the sense that the Pope would send an envoy to Bosnia. The Pope accepted Kulin's request and sent Ivan Kazamaris, his envoy, to Bosnia. The papal envoy, accompanied by Dubrovnik Archdeacon Marin, arrived in Bosnia at the beginning of April 1203. He immediately held a council on Bilinopolia, filled by the river, with the elders of the Christians of From Kulin, his officers and the people. By questioning the elders, he found that their beliefs were distorted. That is why the elders were asked to give up important points of their teaching. They agreed to it, and already on April 8, 1203, signing the act on the rejection of heretical teaching. The act was signed by From Kulin himself and Archdeacon Marin. Kazamaris thus completed the work as ordered by the Pope and then set off for Hungary. In a letter from June 1203, Kazamaris informed the Pope that the issue of Bosnian heretics had been resolved. In reality, the act of renunciation was a tactical move by Kulin. In this way, From Kulin saved his country from the Crusades, at least for a short time. Already from the period of the reign of Ban Matej Ninoslav, under the same charges, crusades in Bosnia continued. According to the charter of the From Kulin, the Bosnian From Kulin promises Prince Krvaš and all the people of Dubrovnik full freedom of movement and trade throughout their country. The charter was written in two languages, Latin and the old form of the Stokavian dialect, with the Stokavian part being a free translation of the Latin original. The scribe's name was Radoje, and the script was Bosnian Cyrillic, Bosančica. Apart from the Trinitarian invocation, which characterizes all charters of the period, the language of the charter is completely free of Church Slavonic influence. The language of the charter reflects several important phonological changes that have occurred in Bosnian unit the 12th century. According to the opinion of historians, the story of the former Russian consul Yeremia Gagic in Dubrovnik, that Kulin's charter was found in 1817 among a pile of papers in the Dubrovnik market that were used for wrapping fish is completely fabricated. The Russian consul did not only intend to cover up the theft of the charter with that story, but to present himself as the savior of this valuable document. Serbian philologist Ljubomir Stojanović proved 100 years ago that all three copies were in the Dubrovnik archives in 1832. Given that the Austrian authorities intended to transfer the entire material from the Dubrovnik archive to Vienna, the Orthodox priest George Nikolaevich, who was tasked with transcribing a number of Cyrillic documents, apparently took them out of the archive. When the following year, in 1833, an inventory of archival materials was conducted in Vienna, the current St. Petersburg copy was no longer there, so it is reasonable to assume that the Russian consul came into possession of the charter through Nikolaevich. Dubrovnik archive preserves another two copies of the charter. The St. Petersburg copy is in the literature usually called the original or copy A, and copy stored in the Dubrovnik archive as younger copy or copy B, and older copy or copy C. At first it was thought that the St. Petersburg copy, which was the first one to be published and studied, was the original and others were much younger copies. For example, Milan Reshetar dated the copies B and C into the latter half of the 13th century, but that was called into question by later analysis. According to a study by Josip Brana, evidence that copy A represents the original remains inconclusive at best, and according to a comparative analysis, that copy represents only a conceptual draft of the charter according to which the real original was written. Copies B and C are independent copies of the real original, which was different from the copy A. Paleographic analysis indicates that all three copies of the charter were written in approximately the same period, at the turn of the 12th century, and that their scribes originate from the same milieu, representing the same scribal tradition. Their handwriting on the one hand relates to the contemporary Cyrillic monuments, and on the other hand it reflects an influence of the Western Latin culture. Such cultural and literary opportunities have existed in the Travunia Zeta area, which encompassed the Dubrovnik region at that period. Copy A probably and copies B and C with certainty originate from the scribe, who lived and was educated in Dubrovnik and its surroundings. Linguistic analysis, however, does not point to any specific characteristics of the Dubrovnik speech, but it does show that the language of the charter has common traits with Ragusan documents from the first half of the 13th century, or those in which Ragusan scribal offices participated. Given that Ragusan delegates participated in the drafting of their copy, everything points that a scribe from Dubrovnik area must have participated in the formulation of the text of the copy A. However, that the final text was written at the court of From Kulin is proved by how today was written. The charter of the Kulin Ban is of great importance in Bosnian national pride and historical heritage.